Welcome to Heidi Relationships. Today, we'll read some more stories from Reddit. But before we start, I would really appreciate if you could subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. That would help the channel a lot. Thank you very much in advance.
The first one is titled, "My wife moved out saying she needs space. We are starting counseling next week. My M35 wife, F34, of 13 years and I are in a free fall. Intimacy issues, work, and trust to blame. I'm a pastor, that's the work part, and my wife moved out of the house 2 weeks ago to get some space and be able to think and process. The last year and a half have been hell. From my point of view, we had our issues but could talk about them and find balance and make things work with our 3 young, 10 and under kids. Here's where we struggle. My high expectations. I told my wife it was super important to me that we be home with our family 4 nights a week. For a while, that was what she expected of me. In my first job, I was out a lot. And I worked to be home more. After moving, I found a place where I was only out 1 night a week. I also really wanted to have dinner together as a family. That was important to me. Then she got a job in fitness. At first, it was great. She's a great coach and is great at delivering a class. She taught 1 class at night and others during the day. We even all went together to her Saturday class as a family. Kid care was awesome, and then went on an adventure. But she changed gyms and roles and started working 3 nights a week plus a class on another night. It was tough, but I started taking her class and bringing the kids to the gym later than we normally stayed out, to see mom, and so I could cheer her on. But she said she felt like I hated her job and wanted to take all of her time. She would often come home from work at 8 or 9 p.m. and then have to work more on a class for the next day. So, I felt double robbed of our time. And she felt like she only disappointed me. Negative feedback loop. So, whenever a dispute came up, or she pointed out something that was difficult for her, she said that if she told me about it, I would get sad. Then the only way for her to cheer me up would be to be physically intimate with me. So, she felt like she was carrying her burdens plus my dead weight. I honestly did not put these pieces together until last year, but she still says because of the past negative feedback loop, she has a really hard time sharing anything with me. I am willing to break this cycle now that I know about it, but then. I have a sleep condition known as sexsomnia. And it's not new. We talked about this for the last decade of our 13-year marriage. Now we had a regular and I thought healthy sex life. Once a week or so, and we talked about things, tried things and were positive with each other. We would both finish, and weren't lacking in being satisfied. And the sexsomnia didn't bother her. It would be perhaps once a week on top of our awake intercourse. She even said if I found myself having intercourse with her, I would sometimes wake in the middle of foreplay, that I shouldn't stop because she'd be all hot and bothered and awake. So might as well we both finish. She would express frustration at not getting enough rest, and with their kids, I get it, but that was the end of the negatives. Until it wasn't. She had a conversation with her boss who shared that he had experienced assault in their younger years. My wife replied with, "Well, my husband does this weird thing at night." He replied with, "Wow, that's really screwed up." And then this thing we had known about and talked about for years became something that was really screwed up. Like, she would have PTSD-like triggers if I even touched her while she slept. Rolling over in the middle of the night, my foot touching her foot triggers. We slept with a pillow between us. I went on anti-anxiety meds and to counseling. I took a sleep study. She couldn't deal with it. It's been a full calendar year since my last episode, but the pain is still really fresh to her. She said it was like taking away her choice. If she didn't want to have intercourse that night, I'd say that was fine, while I was awake. Then I'd try to have intercourse with her when I was asleep. I hated myself for this thing I have no control over. I wanted to take every step I could to fix it and have. But she says she doesn't know if she can ever trust me again. This leads to. She doesn't trust me, but wants me to trust her completely. We never had secrets between us. There were some counseling situations I couldn't share with her at work, but other than that we talked. Often. And about a lot of things. But then she shut down. She didn't want to share anything with me. So, I started to reach out to communicate more. But she asked me to give her space. Then she didn't want me to know who she was talking to. She didn't want me to ask who she was texting. She didn't want me to ask where she was going, who she was going to hang out with, when she would be back, nothing. She told me she was hurting and that I needed to trust her process. Even if that meant being out until 2 or 3 a.m. or texting people what felt like nonstop when we actually were together. She's hidden her location on her iPhone. She's hidden her activity on her watch. Now I take care of the bills. And the insurance. And the dentist and the doctor appointments for the kids. I get the kids up and ready for school in the morning and on the bus. And the house stuff. I do it all. Dishes. Cleaning. Literally of it. She trusts me with our kids, finances, doctors, etc. but not herself. I'm not deep enough? She's a smart one. I try. She said she's experienced real pain in our relationship. Something that I can't really put a finger on outside of what I've outlined above. Whenever I say, "Oh, I think I figured this out about myself," it's usually met with, "I knew that about you already." That's not deep enough. It's still really shallow. Man, I'm trying. I told her I had been doing a lot of thinking and writing in order to try to discover more. She told me that she's prepared to be disappointed with what I've found out because it's probably just a step deeper and not really deep where she is. She didn't feel heard. This is totally my fault and I get it. She would say she had an idea and I'd get really excited about it. A laundry hamper for the bathroom or a trip to the beach. Then I'd take care of all the details. And she felt like I didn't take or want her input. That was bad. I admit that I really messed that up and wanted to make it right. I've tried to make it right by asking her for her opinion and trying to slow down my rushing out to fix things and do things before we've talked about it. Totally me. And then everything else. She didn't want me to meet her at the door when she came home from work at night because she was stressed and needed space. She didn't want me to come upstairs in the morning when she was getting ready to talk to her because she just woke up and wasn't ready to talk. She wanted me to speak her love language of getting her gifts, then she didn't want me to do that anymore because each note or gift was something she had to unpack and think about. I had a hobby writing novels, and making a good chunk of change from it, and doing some podcasts, but then she wanted me to stop that so I could focus on her more. I did. Then it became I'm focusing on her too much. She didn't want me to text her during the day. She didn't want me to call her. She wanted me to dress better, bought clothes and did. She wanted me to be more athletic, have been going to the gym 5 days a week. She wanted me to meal prep with her because she felt lonely doing it all by herself, done. She didn't want me to offer to take her to lunch or spend time with her because she felt like all I was trying to do was lead up to intercourse. She didn't want me to sleep in the same bed as her. She wanted to rent an apartment and move into it for 6 months so she could have some space to process and think and feel. She's been moved out for 2 weeks. I'm exhausted. I love this woman with my whole heart. I told my church about the difficulties we were having and was hinted at heavily that her moving out was going to be a deal breaker. I told her and the church it didn't matter. She was more important to me than my job. Since then, I've been assured my job is secure, but that we should go to marriage counseling. Something I wanted to do a year and a half ago when she told me that she was in a bad place. All of this came down in the last year and a half. I wanted to go to counseling together right away. She said she wasn't ready. She's still saying she's not ready but willing to go to the counselor she selected and at the frequency she can handle. Probably not once a week, in other words. Granted, a crap ton has happened to us in last 10 years. My father passed away before we found out we were pregnant with our first child. Our second child had a major heart condition corrected at 10 weeks old, TAPVR. We went on food stamps because of student loans and only one income. We moved across the country. We had a third kid. I lost my older brother, all 4 grandparents, and my uncle. She's lost her grandparents. A good friend of ours died of breast cancer. My wife literally felt her friend's last heartbeat as I hugged her husband's neck. I broke my leg and was out of my normal dad helping for 3 months. She had a herniated disc in her back that required surgery to fix. Much better now with a ton of PT and training. There's a lot of stuff we've been through. I've been to counseling. Like, a lot of counseling. 6 months, twice a week and a crap ton of journaling. Personally, over all of this and feel like I'm a plain better human being because of it. I just wish it was enough for my wife. Every time I talk about our years before, which I look back on with such fondness, she tells me she just sees sadness and pain. Now granted, we talked about that when we were going through it. I know we did, but we overcame it, or so I thought. She can't really name times she was happy. We went on quick weekend trips just to be together and go on adventures. We had regular dates. We laughed. A lot. Until it all stopped. I don't want to lose her. I'm afraid marriage counseling will be too little too late. I'm willing to make the changes and do the work. She has said she knows what the counselor is going to ask of us, but she doesn't want to do it. I'm exhausted. Are there things I'm missing here? I want to take responsibility for my own faults, but I don't want to be blindsided again. How can I approach the marriage counselor when we are together without just saying, "But I've done everything she's asked of me," without throwing her under the bus? A user in the comments said, "You need to stop killing yourself trying to fix this when she doesn't seem to want to fix it. She sounds to be having intercourse with one of the dudes at the gym from everything you have said. She keeps hoping you'll get tired of her making you bend over backwards for this relationship, but you just keep trying. She is probably just dumbfounded you won't end it and she is getting frustrated." Another user said, "Please wait until you go to this marriage counselor to decide anything. Posting out on Reddit probably isn't going to end up being productive for you. Find out what you can do to calm yourself and your thoughts down while you're waiting for your appointment. Sounds like there are things that she hasn't been able to say to you yet." The next one is titled, Update 1 to the Wife Moved Out Story. I, 35M. Can't remember the event my wife, 35F. Says broke her. It was 10 years ago. I wanted to have intercourse one night. She was not interested. We ended up having intercourse. She was hurt. Understandably so. I can't remember the event for the life of me. She says it's the one pivotal moment that started her not feeling safe around me. Not wanting to share things with me. Being so hurt by me. And, to my knowledge, she never brought it up once. Or she says she tried to, but I didn't listen to her. So, she stopped talking about it and just went on keeping it in the back of her mind, never telling anyone. I know I would get excited about a project or idea she shared and plow ahead with it, but then when she'd tell me she wasn't feeling hurt I'd back off. But she said it was like this with so much more than I realize. Me not listening. Then I finally heard her about this one event. A year and a half ago everything fell apart. She asked me if I remembered. I knew how deeply she was hurt by what she was talking about. But I just didn't remember. I wanted to lie and say I did. But I didn't, and she broke down. I'm devastated. She says I'm a great guy. She trusts me wholeheartedly with our 3 daughters. She moved out a few months ago and said she could be friends with me, but only ever friends. She says it's the reason she can't stand when people hug her. She says she only ever wanted intercourse with me afterwards in moments of humanity or weakness. Not because she wanted to be with me. Just to experience it. We regularly had intercourse. Once a week. We talked about it. Joked about it. It felt normal. To me. But to her, she says it was always painful. Always. She says she's broken, and I broke her. And she asked me never to touch her again. I've posted elsewhere about our struggles, but man, this just hurts. I never wanted to hurt her. I've never laid a hand on her. Never forced her to have intercourse. Never raised my voice at her. I've come home early from work to take care of kids. I skipped work to be there for her. I've paid my life down for this woman. I told her I was sorry I didn't remember the event. I told her I could tell how much she was hurt. I told her I would feel hurt if I was put in the same situation or treated in a similar manner. I agreed that I'd absolutely go nuts on a guy that treated our daughters this way. We had a long talk today. I wanted clarification. I needed to know. I asked her why she didn't just want to go ahead and get divorced. The look on your face. That's all she said. I told her I wouldn't try to fix it. I wouldn't try to bring up the situation again, attempting to remember the episode. I had asked her if she had any other examples of any other times I had treated her this way so that I could try to remember and experience it through my memory. She said once was enough and that she didn't need any more examples. I'm a mess. We're in marriage counseling, but it won't be in order to reconcile our marriage now. It'll be to mitigate the damage. We're both in individual counseling and I'm going to ask about what I can do on my part. Because I never wanted to treat her that would make her feel this way. And I never want to treat another human being this way again. What do I do now? How can I be friends with the woman I share 3 kids with and who says I ruined our marriage? Edit. These responses aren't fun to read. I feel like there's a middle point between my wife is cheating on me and I'm an emotionless rapist. What I can acknowledge that I don't think I was ready to do yesterday when I talked to her is that I hurt her. I, myself, hurt my wife by my actions. Whether my intentions were to hurt her or not are irrelevant. I've caused her pain. I hate that. I do. I love her so much. I never wanted to hurt her. But I did. So, I can and will acknowledge that I did. As for the now what, I'm in counseling as is she. We are in counseling together as well. The reality is she doesn't have to have me as her friend. She could cut ties totally and be justified in doing so. So, I'll take being her friend as the best possible outcome. I'll be the best father I can possibly be to our daughters. I hate that I've hurt her. I wish I hadn't hurt her. I can't change the hurt I've caused her. But I can respect the boundaries she's requested and in general not be an ass towards her. Thanks for your responses. The next one is titled, Update 2. My wife and I are going to go get coffee tomorrow. Might not seem like a big deal to some, but she moved out of the house about 4 months ago after we'd been married for 13 years. Last Friday night after we had family movie night with our 3 girls, something we had committed to when she moved out, we had the most positive and encouraging conversation we've had in years. When we first started this tradition of her coming over on Friday night, we ended up having long conversations where we both felt hurt, and both cried a lot. She would either leave mad or sad or upset. So, for the past couple of Fridays, she just left right after we put the kids to bed. I was surprised when she stuck around this week. She suggested we get coffee tomorrow, but I could tell she was hesitant. There's a lot of hurt in between us. We've been going to counseling now for 2 months. It's actually been a little frustrating for us both because we don't feel like we're going anywhere. During our conversation on Friday night, we both talked about how we felt like we had covered more ground and accomplished more in the first 30 minutes of our 2.5-hour-long conversation than we did in 8 weeks of counseling. That's why she suggested we have coffee tomorrow. I'm trying not to go in with any expectations. It could be a good conversation, or a bad one, or just normal talking. But I just spent about 10 minutes switching out shirt and shoe combinations when my normal routine for getting ready in the morning is grab one of each and hope they match. The next one is titled, Update 3. After my 35M wife, 35F, of 13 years moved out of the house a few months ago, we haven't spent much time together outside of bi-weekly counseling, which has been slow going, and Friday family movie nights with our 3 daughters who live with me. The first few attempts at this ended with us having really hard, raw conversations that had her leaving the house sad and upset. So, for the past few weeks, she's left pretty quickly after we got the kids in bed. Understandable. This last Friday, however, was different. We had a really open, vulnerable, and overall positive conversation. She left feeling much better than previous attempts. So, she suggested we get coffee today to try to continue positive interactions, not having had many during counseling. We're addressing that later. I was surprised because up to this point she's made it clear she needed a lot of space. Near zero communication from me, which I was trying to oblige. I was super nervous, like first date jitters, yesterday, but I went in with no expectations and was thoroughly pleased with how it went today. We talked work and kids for the first part, which was refreshing because it was communication. We talked about each other and our bents and how we've grown during this time. Then we talked about why our Friday conversation went well. She voiced these things. She felt like she was able to communicate clearly and fully, with all of the emotion involved but without worrying about my reaction. My wife is a INFP and a 4W3, so emotions are super important to her, something that she confessed she didn't feel like I ever truly appreciated. She suggested a plan about us becoming friends again, without worrying about working all the way back towards a husband and wife relationship yet, and felt like I not only heard her but was supportive of what she was comfortable pursuing. We used the terms of a 75% relationship where we communicate, spend time together, share things, but don't focus on physical touch. She has a lot of concern about my motivations towards her physically, not unfounded. I've been a jerk in the past and have realized it through listening to her, counseling, and overall self-discovery. Have made as good as an attempt as I know how to communicate. I'm deeply sorry for the wrong I did and hurt I caused. She felt like I had given her control, something I didn't realize I had taken from her. By giving her say over the last 25% of the relationship, she feels like she can function around me without worrying about my motives. It was a really positive follow-up to our already positive interaction last Friday. This is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed the relationship stories. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video and write a comment. I really appreciate your support and it helps my channel so much. Thank you.